But it is rarest still when that person has transformed the way we see the only home that we have, planet Earth.
There is a moment in every powerful dynasty when the torch passes and everything changes. Not ceremonially, not gradually, but suddenly, completely, and with consequences nobody fully anticipated. That moment came for the British royal family on September 8, 2022, the night Queen Elizabeth II drew her final breath at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. And while the world wept for a monarch who had reigned for 70 years, something else was already in motion. Something quiet, something irreversible. Prince William went to sleep that night as a prince and woke up the following morning controlling one of the most powerful private financial empires in Britain. No coronation, no ceremony, just the silent transfer of a legacy worth over £1.2 billion. And with that transfer came something far more personal than money. It came with history, with secrets, and with the power to settle scores that had been festering for decades. Today, we are going to walk you through exactly what William inherited, what he found inside it, what he did about it, and why Camilla Parker Bowles, now Queen Consort, has not slept easily since. Because this is not just a story about property and estates. This is a story about betrayal, loyalty, financial reward, and a son who never forgot what was done to his mother. The empire nobody saw coming. Let us start with what William actually inherited, because most people heard the headlines and moved on. Prince William became the Duke of Cornwall the moment Charles became king. It is written into British law. The Duchy of Cornwall, that ancient, formidable estate, passes automatically and immediately to the next heir to the throne. No delay, no process, just transfer. But what exactly is the Duchy of Cornwall? Most people imagine a collection of farmhouses and rolling hills. The reality is something far grander. We are talking about 135,000 acres of land spread across England and Wales, historic farms, coastal properties in some of the most desirable stretches of Britain, forests, rivers, quarries, financial investments and income streams that have been building, compounding, and growing for nearly 700 years. The duchy generated over £23 million in income in a single recent year. That is the empire that landed in William's hands overnight. Think about that for a second. A man wakes up and he is worth over £1 billion more than he was when he went to sleep. A man wakes up and one of the largest private land holdings in the entire United Kingdom is legally his. A man wakes up and he suddenly controls the financial records, the property portfolio, the staff decisions, and the payroll of an institution that has been operating for centuries. Now here is the question that nobody was asking loudly enough in the days after the Queen's death. What was inside those records? What had the duchy been used for? And what would William find when he finally sat down and looked carefully at the accounts his father had been managing for decades? The duchy that funded a double life. To understand what William inherited, you have to understand how Charles used it. And to understand how Charles used it, you have to go back to 1981, the year Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in what the world was calling the wedding of the century. In that same year, quietly, away from cameras and fanfare, Charles made a financial decision that almost nobody noticed at the time. He reduced his voluntary tax contribution from the duchy from 50% down to 25%. He cut in half what he had been voluntarily contributing back. One quiet decision, one pen stroke. And the result was millions of additional pounds flowing directly into his personal income every single year. Diana believed she was building a life with a man who was committed to her. She believed the wealth of the duchy was securing their family's future. She had no idea that the man sitting across from her at royal dinners had just engineered a financial arrangement that would give him the resources to live two very different lives simultaneously. By 1986, Charles had fully resumed his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, and the Duchy of Cornwall, that ancient and prestigious institution, was quietly underwriting both worlds. Diana's household on one side, the affair on the other, and neither side fully visible to the other. Then there is Highgrove. Charles purchased Highgrove House in Gloucestershire in 1980, the year before he even married Diana. He sold 3 properties from his own estate to fund the purchase. He chose that house deliberately, personally, with his own money, and he did it at a time when his feelings for Camilla were not a distant memory, but a very present reality. Diana moved in after the wedding. She decorated the rooms with her own taste and her own hands. She turned it into a home. She raised William and Harry inside those walls. She spent years in that house genuinely believing she was building something real with the man she had married. She did not know that when she was away, Charles was bringing Camilla into those same rooms, the rooms Diana had decorated, the home Diana had created. Sources who worked in and around that household have confirmed the pattern. And William grew up in that house. He was a child inside those walls. He watched his mother in that home. And as he grew older, he came to understand exactly what had been happening under that roof. Here is what makes this almost difficult to process. William now owns Highgrove. It is his property as Duke of Cornwall. Charles, the King of England, pays his own son £700,000 per year in rent to continue living in the house where the affair was carried out. The man who used that property to betray Diana writes a check to Diana's son every year to remain inside it. That is not a small detail. That is the entire story in miniature, and you haven't even seen half of it. The name on the payroll. But Highgrove and the tax reduction were only part of what William discovered when he examined the duchy's accounts. Because buried inside those financial records was a name, and the story attached to that name is darker than almost anyone had reported. The name is Annabel Elliot, Camilla's younger sister. Annabel Elliot had been on the Duchy of Cornwall payroll for 20 years. Over that period, the duchy paid her £1.5 million. The stated reason was interior design work on royal properties. But once you understand who Annabel Elliot really is, what she actually did, and when she did it, that money takes on a meaning that is very difficult to dismiss. To understand Annabel's role, you have to go back to December of 1992. British Prime Minister John Major stood before the House of Commons and formally announced to the entire world that the Prince and Princess of Wales were separating. Diana's marriage was declared dead in Parliament, in public, in front of the entire nation. While Diana was somewhere trying to process the most publicly humiliating moment of her life, a woman was parked outside Camilla's home with her car engine running. She was there to spirit Camilla away from the press that had converged on the street. She drove the getaway car on the day Diana's marriage was killed in Parliament. That woman was Annabel Elliot. But that moment was not where Annabel's role had begun. It was simply the most visible point of it. For years before that day, Annabel and her husband had quietly opened their country home as the regular meeting place for Charles and Camilla. Weekend after weekend, the future King of England would arrive at Annabel's house, and Camilla would be waiting. Annabel knew exactly what was happening under her roof. She facilitated it. She made herself an essential part of the infrastructure of the affair. And then, there was the cruelty that never made the front pages. Diana was 5 feet 10 inches tall. Charles was 5 feet 9. She was taller than her own husband. She was painfully, acutely aware of it. At every public appearance, every event, every formal occasion, Diana physically contracted herself. She bent and tilted and adjusted her posture so that she would not appear to tower over the man she had married. She shrank herself in front of the entire world, day after day, to protect his ego. Camilla and Annabel found this hilarious. They would mock the way Diana twisted herself in public for a man who was spending his weekends at Annabel's home with someone else. But the cruelty went deeper still. The week Charles and Diana got engaged, before the ink was dry on the announcement, Charles looked at Diana and said casually, as though commenting on the weather, "Oh, a bit chubby here, aren't we?" His hand was on her waist. She was 19 years old. Diana later recorded her own account of this moment on tape. She said that comment, combined with everything she was already beginning to discover about Charles and Camilla, triggered the onset of bulimia, a brutal, consuming eating disorder that began the week her engagement was announced and took her 10 years to fight through. One comment from the man she was about to marry. And it broke something deep inside a 19-year-old girl that did not heal for a decade. Camilla and Annabel knew about Diana's disorder, Everyone in that inner circle knew. And as the years passed and the tabloids tracked Diana's body like a sport, calling her skeletal when the illness was hollowing her out, calling her pudgy when she fought her way back, Camilla and Annabelle would buy those newspapers. They would read those headlines out loud to each other. They laughed. And sources say Charles was sometimes sitting in the same room when this happened. He did not tell them to stop. He did not walk away. He laughed along with them. Do you want to know what makes that detail land differently when you hold it alongside the payroll records? Because the question everyone was asking after William inherited the duchy was not simply whether Annabelle Elliot was a competent interior designer. The question was whether £1.5 million over 20 years was payment for decorating rooms, or payment for everything else she had done, for hosting the affair, for driving the getaway car, for 2 decades of enabling, facilitating, and laughing along. Nobody could prove it either way, but everyone could see exactly what it looked like. The party that changed everything. In 1989, the secret came apart in the most personal way possible. There was a party at Lady Annabelle Goldsmith's home in London. Diana arrived. Charles and Camilla were nowhere to be found in the main rooms. Diana noticed. She started looking. Staff physically attempted to stop her from going downstairs. She pushed past them and went anyway. She found Charles and Camilla sitting together alone in the basement, tucked away from the party, hidden. Diana sat Camilla down. She told her directly that she knew exactly what was happening between them. She was not hysterical. She was composed. She had come too far and waited too long to fall apart now. Camilla did not apologize. She did not flinch. You've got everything you ever wanted. You've got all the men in the world falling in love with you. You've got 2 beautiful children. What more do you want? Diana's answer was 4 words. I want my husband. Charles said nothing. Not one word. He sat there while Camilla dismissed his wife. He did not defend Diana. He did not tell Camilla to stop. He offered nothing. Diana wept the entire journey home. Her protection officer sat in the car with them both and said afterward that Charles and Diana did not exchange a single word for the entire drive. Diana cried. Charles stared forward, and the affair continued. 16 years later, they married. And almost immediately after the wedding, Annabelle Elliot was placed on the Duchy of Cornwall payroll, William's inheritance, and his first move. Now bring all of that forward to William, sitting with the duchy's financial records in front of him after September 2022. He sees the accounts. He sees the income streams, the property holdings, the records of 20 years of payments. He sees the name Annabelle Elliot. He sees the figures attached to that name. And he understands, as the son of Diana, what all of it means and what it represents. What he did next sent shockwaves through the royal household. William cut Annabelle Elliot from the payroll completely. No transition period, no gradual wind-down, no courtesy process. He simply ended it. When Camilla found out, the controlled, polished image she had spent decades presenting to the world came apart. According to reports, her reaction was not measured or diplomatic. She reportedly called William a vengeful boy, just like his mother. 5 words. And in those 5 words, she revealed everything she had carried for 30 years. She had never seen Diana as a victim. She had always seen Diana as a problem, difficult, dramatic, too much. And now Diana's son was standing in front of her, making decisions she could not override, and she reached for the same dismissal she had always used against his mother. The king cannot help her. Camilla went directly to Charles. She wanted the king to intervene, to call his son, to reverse the decision. She wanted the authority of the crown brought down on this. She wanted someone to remind William who was still in charge. Charles told her he could not do anything. The duchy belongs to William now. The decision is his to make. It stands. For the first time in 4 decades, Camilla had gone to Charles with a problem and come back with nothing. But here is where the story takes a turn that even Camilla did not fully anticipate. Because Charles was not simply stepping back from a payroll dispute out of constitutional obligation. He was already in the middle of his own quiet negotiation with William. and what he put on the table revealed just how frightened he truly was about what would happen to his wife after his death. Sources report that Charles approached William privately and proposed what can only be described as a deal. The offer was this: agree to protect Camilla after my death, guarantee her security and her access to the royal estates, and I will support cutting Harry off permanently. A dying king sat down with one son and offered to put the other son on the table as the price. William said nothing. He did not agree. He did not refuse. He simply offered silence. That silence should concern Camilla far more than any argument ever could, because William is not someone who acts from anger. He does not make impulsive decisions. He makes quiet ones, permanent ones. He removed Annabel from the payroll without a confrontation. He walked away from his father's offer without a fight. He simply continues moving, making decisions, and letting time do its work. The wounds that never healed. Sources close to William's inner circle are not gentle when they describe his feelings about Camilla. They say the resentment has never left him. He watched his mother endure that marriage. He knows what the affair cost Diana in ways that never made any newspaper. He has been strategic and diplomatic about it over the years because that is who he is, not because anything has been forgiven. There is a story about William and Camilla's children that rarely gets reported, and it reveals just how deep these wounds remain. After Diana died, William eventually met Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, his new step-siblings. With Tom, he found a civil, workable relationship, cold but functional. With Laura, it was a different story entirely. Royal author Katie Nicholl documented the reality of what happened when William and Laura were placed in the same space. They had violent, explosive arguments, real ones. William would blame Camilla directly and without apology for everything Diana had been put through. Laura would defend her mother with equal force. William never forgot those fights. He never forgot what Camilla did to his family. Meanwhile, Camilla has been making moves that speak volumes about how frightened she is of what happens when Charles is gone. She sold Ray Mill House, the private property in Wiltshire she had owned personally since before she ever married Charles. It was her private retreat, her garden, the one space she had that existed entirely outside the royal structure. She called gardening the best therapy in the world, and then she sold it. Camilla now has no independent property. Every roof over her head belongs to the royal institution. Right now, that institution is protected by Charles. The moment Charles is gone, it belongs to William. And sources say Camilla is frantically working to secure written guarantees of access to royal properties with full staff before Charles dies. She is trying to lock things in while she still has a king who is on her side. But there is one thing no agreement, no negotiation, and no dying king's private request can change: the estates that will change everything. Here is the reality that no amount of Camilla's planning can get around. Sandringham and Balmoral are not government property. They are not owned by the Crown in any official institutional sense. They are personal private property that belongs to the reigning monarch and passes privately to the next one. When Charles dies, both estates transfer directly and personally to William, not to the government, not to the institution, to William. Camilla has no legal claim to either of them. Her children have none. Her sister has none. Nobody in Camilla's family has a single legal right to either property. The day William becomes king, Camilla's continued access to Sandringham and Balmoral is entirely dependent on whether William personally chooses to allow it. She will not have a right, she will have to ask, and William will decide. This is not speculation. It is not the fevered imagination of royal commentators looking for drama where none exists. It is the cold, documented legal reality of how these estates function. And it is a reality that has been understood inside palace circles for years. And Camilla, whatever composure she projects in public, almost certainly knows it too. The woman who hosted the affair in her sister's house, who bought newspapers and laughed at headlines about Diana's eating disorder, who called William a vengeful boy when he ended his aunt's paycheck, who went to Charles and came back empty-handed, will one day have to ask Diana's son for permission to walk through the front door of a house she currently treats as her own. The Christmas that told the whole story. There was a moment at Christmas 2024 that everyone in the royal world understood the meaning of immediately. Camilla arranged for Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes to spend Christmas at Sandringham House for the very first time. She told Tom she had not spent the holiday with him in years and wanted him there. Charles was at the head of the table. The house was full and warm. William was not there. Reports surfaced almost immediately that William would not attend if Tom Parker Bowles was going to be present. He made no dramatic statement about it. He sent no hostile message. He simply did not show up to a house that is already, under every rule of royal inheritance, his future property. He holds no official deed yet, but he will, and he knows it. So he stayed away and let Camilla have her Christmas in a house that is running out of time as hers. And every person watching understood exactly what that absence meant. It is worth pausing on that detail for a moment because its significance is easy to underestimate. William did not protest. He did not issue a counter-invitation or lobby his father or make a scene that could be reported and then dismissed. He simply removed himself. He treated Sandringham, in that quiet act of non-attendance, not as a place he was barred from, but as a place he had already, in his own mind, moved beyond needing to fight over. That is the behavior not of a man reacting to a slight, but of a man who has already calculated the outcome and found the present argument unnecessary. That patience is the most unsettling thing about William's position. He is not acting from emotion. He is not making reactive decisions. Every move he has made has been cold, deliberate, and impossible to undo. He ended Annabelle's payments without a word. He declined his father's deal without an argument. He skipped Christmas without a confrontation. Quiet, permanent, patient. What comes next? When William becomes king, and that day will come, two of the most significant private estates in the British royal world become his personally and entirely. Sandringham will pass to William, and then to his son George. Diana's grandchildren will grow up in those rooms. They will spend their Christmases in those halls. They will own that estate in a way Camilla's family never will and never can. What makes this more than a simple story of inheritance is the weight of what those rooms represent. Sandringham is not merely a house. It is the place where royal Christmases have been held for generations, where the family gathers in the full glow of public tradition and private ritual. For Camilla, access to Sandringham has been part of the long project of legitimization, the steady accumulation of images, appearances, and occasions that slowly rewrote her public story from the woman who broke a marriage to the woman who belongs. Losing that access, or having it made conditional, would unpick something fundamental in the narrative she has spent decades constructing. Camilla's access to everything she currently moves through as though it belongs to her will be decided entirely by the judgment of a man who watched his mother suffer, who grew up in Highgrove, knowing what those walls had been used for, who found the name on the payroll and ended it without a single conversation. So here is the question we leave you with today. When that day finally comes, when Charles is gone and William holds the keys to every door Camilla has spent 40 years walking through freely, what do you think William will do? Do you believe the resentment he has carried since childhood is truly buried? Or do you think those quiet, permanent decisions are telling us exactly who William is and exactly what is coming? Because from everything we have seen, William is not a man who forgets. And if there is one thing the story of Annabel Elliot, the Duchy of Cornwall, and the long shadow of Diana tells us clearly, it is that William's waiting has never yet been without a purpose. The clock is running, and Camilla knows it. If this story gave you something to think about, drop a comment below. We want to hear your thoughts on whether William has already made his decision. Hit subscribe if you are new here, and click the notification bell, because we cover the royal stories that the mainstream press never quite gets to the bottom of. We will see you in the next one.